In this video, I'm going to talk about the most simple, basic concept that has ever existed in competitive debate: how to make an argument. Almost every debate coach that I've ever met starts their how to make an argument part of teaching debate with the same person. So I'm going to start there. So most debate coaches start with the Toulmin model and a guy named Toulmin. The reason for this is that most debate coaches are communications teachers or professors, or that's what they studied in college, and Toulmin is one of the biggest scholars in that field, and I felt it was only necessary that for this video that I start with Toulmin as well. So I've had this PowerPoint on my computer for like a decade. It's from some professor at the University of South Florida. I thought it has done a really good basic job. So this is the Toulmin model. Pretty simply put, the Toulmin model is after Stephen Toulmin, who was somebody from over 100 years ago, or at least that's when they were born, and they were a big professor in the communication world and taught at USC and created this model for argumentation that almost every debate teacher, coach, student, debater, etc. that I've ever met utilizes as their base assumptive model for how to make an argument. So what did Toulmin's model look like? Toulmin's model had three basic steps. You have to have a claim, you have to have data, and you have to have a warrant. Now, one of the things that's going to be very important is the Toulmin model is going to be different from how debate, or at least how I teach how debate utilizes the Toulmin model, but this is Toulmin's model. So a lot of these things are going to have similar sounding names, but they're not going to be exactly the same. So Toulmin's model starts with a claim. The claim is what's made, the thing that you are trying to prove true. The data is the facts that support that, and the warrant connects the two together. So for instance, in Toulmin's model, in this example, they say that because they were born in New York State, they are an American. Therefore, anybody born in New York State is an American would be the warrant for the claim behind the argument that the person has made here. So this is pretty much what the Toulmin model is and how the Toulmin model functions in relation to debate. So what debate does with this is debate takes some components from this and kind of makes it its own. And in my experience in debate, a lot of coaches do this differently. A lot of them use similar terminology, but this is sort of how I have taught this over the years, and it's really worked for my debaters. So the Toulmin model, we are going to take this now and we are going to make it into a Toulmin model for debate. So just like the Toulmin model started with a claim. So that is the same thing that we are going to start with. We are going to start with a claim. Now, I always give my debaters another word for this because I always feel like when you repeat the same words over and over and over again, it's kind of hard to understand you sometimes, or it just gets redundant and repetitive. So I also have called this the assertion. And pretty much this is the thing that you as a debater are trying to prove true in the debate. It is the base assertion, the base statement that you are making, right? So if you say, "Mom, I want a PS5," right? That's a claim. Now your mom's going to say no. Now in order to refute no, you're going to have a reason why you want a PS5. You are going to have to back up that original claim that makes that claim valid enough for it to be proven true in the debate. And we do this in debate So again, remember, claim, assertion, synonyms. They are not different from one another. Just trying to give you a couple of different ways to think about this. A claim is backed up by a warrant. An assertion can be backed up by reasoning. Once again, reasoning and warrant are synonyms to one another. They mean the same thing. They say the same thing. Essentially, this is you proving the statement true. So, or at least you, to the best of your knowledge, saying why that claim or assertion that you have made is something that we should believe in the debate. So, if I said, Mom, you should buy me a PS5, the reason for that might be because all the cool kids have PS5s and that's going to make me cool too, right? So sometimes I like to say the reasoning or the warrant in the debate is what comes after the because. It's the thing that proves the assertion or the claim true. Now, the number one problem we have in debate is normally we're debating about things that we don't know a whole lot about. So, like, for instance, I'll be honest, didn't know a lot about the right to strike before the November-December resolution this past year. So, how can I make reasons and warrants that back up claims and assertions without knowing anything about it? And the answer to that is evidence. So, your evidence that you read in a debate is what's going to be the filter that makes it so that you can prove a claim true. That's what is going to give veracity to your reasoning. Sure, well, Mom, you don't believe me that the PS5 is going to make me cool. Here's this scholarly article written by a professor that says that that's actually really important to my mental health and I need a PS5. That would be me introducing scholarly evidence into the debate rather than just relying on assertions by however old the debater is who is making the arguments in the debate. So this is the base model that I use to teach how to make an argument. So you make a claim or an assertion. That claim or assertion has a warrant or reason that proves it true, and that is backed up by evidence that hopefully is scholarly in the debate. So let's give two examples, and I always give the same two examples here for this. So the first claim that I'm going to put out here is the sky is blue. All right, you're like, oh, well, yes, Scott, we know the sky is blue. Well, why is that true? That's a claim. What is the reason for why that is true? And a warrant would be the because part that proves this. So I'm pretty sure the reason for this, let's draw like a little earth here real fast. All right, so here's the earth, right? There's this thing that sends light towards the earth. Known as the sun. The sun sends light towards the earth. The earth is surrounded by this thing, which if you're debating the space topic, you're super familiar with, called the atmosphere. When light hits the atmosphere, it reflects. I want to say that's right. I'm not a physics person. It's either reflects or refracts. I never looked this up. Forgive me. I think it's reflects. It reflects through the atmosphere. When it reflects at the UV light spectrum. Everybody knows the UV light spectrum. If you've seen a rainbow before, Roy G. Biv, that is actually the UV wavelength that light is determined at, and that determines colors. When that light comes in and hits the atmosphere, it comes in at a certain wavelength. I want to say it's like 550 or something like that. Somebody's probably going to be like, oh, you're wrong. I just studied this in physics and it's whatever, but just go with me here. It comes in at blue. it reflects. That's why you see it as blue. You're like, Scott, that was a terrible story. That was a terrible drawing. You didn't convince me. Well, that's why the evidence portion is there. You have the evidence portion so that you can have an expert that says all of that stuff. So if I were to quote a scholarly source for this, I might quote a professor in astrophysics, somebody who studies physics in the solar system, because that would be somebody who would be super qualified to make arguments like this, or to prove things like that true, because it's what they do for a living. And we are taught that professionals like professors who study those things for a living are qualified, or at least more qualified than your average debater, to make that type of assertion. So that would be a claim. I explained the warrant, and then that is what the evidence would be. So that is how you make an argument in a debate. Let's give a second example here. The second example that I have is the simple statement, planes fly. Planes fly. So that's a claim again, or an assertion. Claim, planes fly. Why is that true? Why do planes fly? You can try. Stop the video right now. Try to complete this out before I go through and talk about this. So, why do planes fly? The reason planes fly, let's draw a terrible plane here. I'm sure this is going to be so much worse than my other drawing. Oh, yeah. We got a plane here. Why do planes fly? Well, the reason that planes fly, I'm pretty sure, again, not a physics person talking about all this physics stuff for some reason, when the plane goes down the runway, it is generating thrust over its wings. When it's flying down the runway and generating that thrust over the winged surface, because of the law of thermodynamics, it generates lift capacity. And that's what causes the plane to fly. Now, again, probably super wrong here. I'm probably explaining it in all the wrong terms, but that's the reason evidence would exist for this. Now, maybe we don't need a professor. Maybe that's too scholarly. It seems too academic for you. Maybe you could quote a pilot on this. Maybe you could quote an aerospace engineer. Maybe you could quote somebody who is a mechanical engineer at Boeing that creates and makes airplanes and services airplanes for a living. That would all be evidence that would prove my warranting for why planes fly true. So, these are two examples as to, some really simple how to make an argument. Hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.